Alright, this is where we left off last time. Now what we want to do is a couple of things. One is, notice how this stretches across the entire screen. Okay, if it's this nice small one like this. But the larger the screen, the more it's going to stretch, and we don't want people moving their heads back and forth while they're reading the information. So one of the things we're going to do is encapsulate all our HTML tags into another tag called a wrapper, and make it so that the wrapper is only a specific size, and once the screen gets larger than that, margins will show up on either side. And then we're going to go ahead and put the section and the aside area side by side. Alright, so let's go ahead and put our wrapper in first. That is going to be structure, so we go back to our HTML. We want the header, or the wrapper, to start right here at the header. And what I'm going to do is not go all the way over so it's above the header, because it's going to be inside. Header will be a child of the wrapper. So I'll do div. So there's no element called wrapper, which there was, or container, but they didn't do it. So we're going to have to use a class for that. So we're going to say div dot wrapper and then tab. So I want everything to be inside the wrapper. So I'm going to have to get rid of this closed div because it can't be there. So I'm going to do Control X and cut it out of the document, and then move down, and we want it to be above the closed body tag. Oops. Okay. So we want it to be right about here. So I'm going to go ahead and paste it back in. And then I'm going to comment it by typing in end of wrapper and then selecting that text, and again doing Control and slash to make that. So now I know why that div is there. That div is the end of the wrapper. Be careful, if you put the wrapper and leave it up here, then nothing's going to change on your website because nothing's going to be inside the wrapper. It'll all be underneath it. Alright, so that's the first thing, but we have to style it in order for us to notice any differences. So since the wrapper is actually our first element, I'm going to squeeze it in here. So this is going to be wrapper, and notice it's white, and that's because, remember, wrapper was a class, so I'm going to have to put a dot in front of it, and now it's happy, just like our start box up here. Classes start with a period. Alright, so the next thing I'm going to do in the wrapper is I'm going to have a margin on it. So I'm going to say margin, and not margin left, but margin. Oh, see how that's because this should be here and actually underneath here. How did that happen? Alright, sometimes that happens with the stupid laptop. Alright, so margin 0 pixels, and then auto. So what that's telling you is I want a 0 pixels up and down, so top and bottom margin, but my left and right margins I want it auto so that the wrapper is in the center of the page. I still don't think there's much we can see, so I'm just going to go ahead and leave that for now. The other thing I'm going to do is add a width, because we don't want the contents to span the entire page. So I'm going to do width, and I'm going to do for now 200 pixels, just so we can see it, because I have a little tiny screen here. So let's see what happens when we do this. We'll do File, Save All, because I've added HTML and CSS. Now let's go back to the page and see what it looks like. Alright, I'm going to go ahead and make this bigger. And when I refresh, so there's my 200 pixels. And you can see it's centered on the page. So 200 was ridiculous. So let's go back to our CSS. And I'm going to put on here 7. Let's see how that looks. File, Save All, and then refresh. There you go. So as I move in this, you can see that the margin gets bigger and smaller until we get to the actual size of the page, and then it won't go by that. But up here, when I get wider, we just get a wider margin on it. Alright, but the actual size I want it to be is 960. we'll do File and Save All, and then refresh. Whoops. And you can see that one of the reasons why I can't even fit it on this page, so that's why I wanted to show you first the other way. Alright, now we want these section aside to be side by side. Alright, so we have to come in here, and we have a section and we have an aside already. So what we're going to be doing is we're going to be doing some floating. Alright, so if I say, well, I want this section to float left, and I want this aside to float left, and I do File, Save All, and then refresh. Whoop, there it goes. Alright, so when I floated them, you can see now they turn into like inline block elements where they shrunk down to the size of the content within it, and you can see that the footer moved up here. And the reason why I did that is because the footer no longer sees section and aside, so it moved up. Now our text moved over because the browser knows we want to be able to see that text, so the text doesn't slide underneath, but all the purple area did. So we want to move these out, or actually we don't want to move that. We want the footer to no longer not be able to see these. So what we're going to do is we're going to clear that float. So we go down to the footer, and we're going to say clear, and then we have a left, a right, or both. And since it's below, we're going to say left. File and Save All, and hopefully this will work. And refresh. Bam. Okay, so now the footer area goes back to where we expected it to be because of the clear, it says that ignore the fact that these are floats, and now it no longer can see it. So, but we want to move these side by side. So let's go back in here and change the sizes of them. So the section, let's make the section, whoops. So we'll do the width, and we'll do 600 pixels. Do File, Save All. So now instead of being the size of the content, it'll be a specific size. Bam, and it's moved on over. I'm going to move this over a little bit so I can see the other side. Okay, there's 960 right there. So now I have to figure out how big can I make the aside. So if I right mouse click and inspect this element, I can come down and click on the aside, and then over here where it says element style, I can add a style of width. And I'm going to make that, since it's 960, I'll make it 360 pixels. And you can see that it's not big enough to fit over there. And that's because of the fact that we have borders and padding on that. So let's go ahead and see how to fix that. Now, one way to fix it is using this right mouse click and inspect element. This allows me to type in a new element style. So this isn't on permanent. This is just for now. And if I click on that, I can use my up and down key to change that value. So I'm now going to shrink it. And I'm going to shrink it until it moves up next to, whoop, there it is. So now I'm going to use the up key to move it back out again. And you can see that right about here, right about 272 is where it matches up. If I go one more pixel, it breaks. So 272, and I've done the math on the website to show you what that should be. But I just want to show you if you've done this and for some reason it looks like that, then you might want to check the pixels and make sure that you have them correctly. You might have made the border slightly bigger or the wrapper a little bit smaller. But if you come in here, right mouse click, you can go ahead and change this value so you can see what you can do to change it so that it'll look perfect on your page. Alright, so 272. Let's go back. And for the aside, I'm going to do width and 272 pixels. Okay, if I go back here and refresh, you can see that's the old size. And then when I do File, Save All, refresh, bam. And now it is working perfectly. The only thing I want to do is I need to fix now. Let me go back and move this. Okay, I need to move these, so we want to go ahead and float them too. So let's go ahead and do that. Alright, so what we want to do on that is we have a navigation, and the navigation inside it has a UL and an NI. So we're going to say in the nav, select the UL and LI. You can see in my notes I don't use UL because all LIs are in UL, so that's just an extra. But if you want to be more specific, this is the way to do it. Alright, so the next thing we want to do is we want to display and change it from a block level element to an inline block. Whoops. Let's do File and Save All, and let's go back and refresh. So you can see now they're side by side. The only thing I want to do is I want to add some margin or padding to these to move them away from each other. So we're just going to add a margin of 20 pixels, which will actually separate them 40 pixels, and that should separate them nicely. Alright, so the other thing we're going to do is we're going to say margin, and what I want to do is 0 pixels up and down and 20 pixels right and left, so it'll be 40 pixels in between. And we'll do File, Save All, and refresh. Shut this down and refresh. So you can see now that these moved out from each other. Okay, so if we add some other stuff, let's go back into our HTML. And let's see what I did in the lesson. Okay, so in the aside, I have that H1, and then if I do a paragraph tag, this is stuff about me, and do another paragraph. This is more, whoops, more stuff about me. If I do File and Save and then refresh, you can see now I have this gap. So one thing I can do is I can fill that in, or I can make the width of this larger, or the height of this. So the height right now is based upon that. One of the ways I can do it, I showed you, and that is by putting this same green as the wrapper. That's one way to do it. But another way to do it would be to right mouse click and do Inspect. Alright, so there is that element. And then do height. And let's start with 300 pixels. And you can see that is too big. Alright, so I'm going to go ahead and double click on that and hit my down arrows to make it 299 and just move it all the way up. Come on now. Until it matches. Alright, so that's too little. That's right. So that's 135 pixels. So that's another way of doing it besides changing the wrapper background. I figured I'd show you that, something different in the video. All right, 135. Let's go ahead and put it back in here. So that would be our section. And a section has a height of, I forgot, 135 pixels. Okay, so now if I go back and I refresh, okay, there's the mess. Let me go ahead and close this. Okay, and let me come back here, and I'll file, save all, and refresh. Okay, so your homework assignment is going to be to make a page similar to this, except I want you to put your information in there. But I have a video on that also within the assignment 1. All right, that's it.